So today I wish to celebrate the Titanic, which of course tragically sunk all those years ago. But the reason I'm choosing to celebrate the Titanic and that tragic event is not so commonly understood. It really saddens me that the popular films that have been created about that event have become centered on romances and trying to tell the human story of people that are caught on a ship that's about to capsize, and of course there are these iconic moments of the band playing as the ship goes down, and yet it's interesting that so few people really understand the role that the Titanic was playing in our history, in global history, because there was a very important meeting that was due to happen on the Titanic. This took place just around the time of the formation of the Federal Reserve, an organisation with the name Federal that one would think was part of the American establishment, but of course it's actually a private bank with anonymous shareholders that has basically controlled not just the fortune of America, but of the Western world. But the reach goes far beyond that. It affects everything that we've seen through the 20th and 21st century, and it continues to quietly in the background play its role. Now, someone else that I've celebrated in the course of these 365 festivals is G. Edward Griffin, who famously wrote a book called The Creature of Jekyll Island, which is a book, and I think, you can find various forms of that, which focused on the formation of the Federal Reserve, which happened on Jekyll Island, a secret meeting that brought together head bankers from around the world with a scheme to control international economies through the use of this organisation. And the Federal Reserve was instituted by motions that were put through Congress in very dubious ways, because I believe a debate was convened on Christmas Day when almost nobody was in attendance. Papers were rushed through, and so the Federal Reserve Act was brought into being. Now, there was some awareness of this ruse and the incredibly negative impact that this was going to have around the world. And so a meeting was convened between those people that were opposed to the institution of the Federal Reserve, including, I believe, one of the wealthiest people in the world at that time. I can't remember his first name, but Astor, I believe. He was one of the wealthiest men in the world who was very much against the Federal Reserve. And a meeting was convened on the Titanic, known as the Unsinkable, where there was going to be this group of people opposed to the Federal Reserve, but also the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. Now, it's a long time since I've looked into this, and I believe it was one of the Rothschilds. No, it wasn't. It was another one of the main backers of the Federal Reserve, who was actually a steel magnate who was behind the building of the ship. And basically, as the ship set sail, 2 or 3 of these significant Federal Reserve members suddenly couldn't make it, and then the ship went down on its maiden voyage. It seems to me that this was anything but an accident. If you're instituting something like the Federal Reserve and you're organising a meeting on your ship with the people who are opposed to your idea, and you don't turn up for its maiden voyage, I'm afraid that to me is beyond suspicious. And maybe I'm reading too much between the lines, but it seems to me that the Titanic and the people who lost their lives there were caught up in a story that was so much larger than anyone could have imagined, that I believe we're still today seeing the impact of that event. So that's the reason why I would choose to celebrate and to recognise the losses of those people who were affected by the Titanic, but also to mourn for all of us who have been affected by the financial implications that arose through the institution of the Federal Reserve. So today I'm celebrating the sinking of the Titanic.